We are looking at measuring angles. Yesterday we did points, lines, planes. We are laying the groundwork for what's coming down the semester. We are in Unit 2, which means this is new stuff. Now some of it might ring a bell, or some of it you might have seen in the past from a previous class. When you build a house, you have to pour concrete for the slab to build the house on, right? Or if it's a brick house, you have to pour the foundation, the footer, in order to put brick on it, right? We are doing that right now with measuring angles, okay? This is very important that you understand how to read an angle, how to name it, how to measure it, and how to add and subtract angles, okay? It is page 17. You look up here at the top. This is very similar to yesterday where we just have a couple of guessing problems. We are going to have a brain break here. It is easier to talk about these angles if we put some letters next to them. We're going to call this angle A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. And then now what I want you to do, you can get up and go to another person in the room. You can be sitting next to someone and you can both get up and go somewhere else in the room if you just want to stretch your legs for a second. I want you to find someone to talk about which ones of these angles do you think match. Okay? You could even take someone's paper and try to line it up and hold it to the air and see which ones match. But I want you to find the ones that match. Go. Yeah, go. You can write it over here. You can just put like A matches with, now put some space because we're going to fill it in with something. B matches with something. I was hoping to let you, move around the room and talk to a friend to try to have a brain break to help you get re-engaged into the lesson. When I say there's no wrong answers, I just mean that if you think an angle matches another angle, it's okay to not correct it right now. This was just a brain break, move around the room, try it. Now let's just compare, okay? A couple of these angles are very close in nature, so there really could be, you could argue it either way. I'm just going to tell you what I saw, okay? Now, in terms of what you marked, whatever you marked, what I'm about to do, I need you to follow suit with your picture as well. Here's what I mean by that. These are angles, okay? Angles are two rays that come together at the same endpoint. So it's two rays, right? I saw angle A was congruent. I said D. I said A and D looked the same. Now, if you didn't, that's okay. That's all right. Whatever angle you said A matches, here's what I need you to do. When you have congruent angles, instead of having to write, oh, this is equal to D, or putting a big old equal sign on it, because that's not right, you draw what's called an arc. You draw an arc on the angle, and then you go to the angle that you think it is congruent to, and you draw the exact same arc. So I personally said A matched D. Whatever you think A matches, then you need to go find that letter, that angle, and put the same arc. Now we're going to move to B. You could argue B is congruent to C. They're side by side. Someone in first block argued that. We did end up, it got really intense. So we had to settle it. We had to know. We took another person's paper, we superimposed them, we held it to the light, and we confirmed B and C are actually different. B, I said, is congruent to G. So we're going to come over here. Now you might think, well, if I draw an arc like that, there's a problem. What's the problem? Now it looks like it's congruent to A and D as well, and that is not the case. So you're going to draw a second arc with it. Oh, that was a bad arc, but anyways, we're just going to go with it. We're just going to move on. So you would draw 2. C is congruent to E. So C, now if I do 2, once again we have a problem, so we're going to do 3. And you do have to make them kind of small in order to get 3 in there. Now we do have 2 left. It would be angles F and H. Now, good news is, you might think, well, she's about to draw 4 arcs. I'm not. There's another trick, there's another technique for showing they're congruent when now you have too many. You're going to draw a single arc, and then you put, I call it a tick mark. Put a tick mark on it, and then you would come over here and make it match. And then let's say if there was another pair of angles, you would draw the arc, and then I would do 2 tick marks. So that's a way to also show that they're congruent. The word congruent, by the way, I kind of threw that out there hoping you'd know what it would mean. Now I just want to make sure, when we were saying which ones match, we do mean which ones are equal. I need you to know that the word congruent is the fancy math word for equal. Okay? Fancy math word for equal. Completely equal. Now, here's what the symbol is for congruent. You ready? It is an equal sign with a squiggly above it. Very complicated technical term, squiggly. The squiggly actually does have a name. It's called tilde. I don't know why. I don't know if it was invented by tilde or what. But that symbol right there is congruent, okay? It means equal. Now you might say, well, can't you just draw an equal sign? You can. However, you're going to be seeing me draw congruent signs, and I need you to know both. There is also a symbol for an angle. Instead of having to write the word angle, you can draw a flat angle. When I say flat, I mean like one side of it is flat. It almost looks like an L, a capital L that's tipped over or tilted, leaning. How's that? A leaning L. You with me? You writing this? Everything I write, you write. Okay. So we said angle A is congruent to angle D, or whatever you said. Then angle B is congruent to angle, what did we say? G. Angle C is congruent to angle E. And that leaves us with F is congruent to H. I need you to know the way that we wrote that. It's called a congruence statement. You're saying this angle is equal to this angle, and it's very important because it is going to be part of your directions when we practice these problems. Yes?
What did you say the little squiggly thing
was? The entire symbol with the equal sign and squiggly above it is called the congruent symbol. It means equal. The squiggly itself is called a tilde. I don't know why, but you're not going to hear us say tilde in math. All right. Now, that was just a fun little activity. Hope y'all had a blast. It was great. Woo! Okay. Please take your highlighter. Please come right here and highlight the word angle. And let's write the definition. What is an angle? It is formed by 2 rays sharing the same endpoint called the vertex? Formed by two rays sharing the same endpoint called the vertex. So this is a vocab word as well. I need you to take your highlighter and highlight where you wrote vertex. Then I want you to take your highlighter and highlight the vertex in the picture. It would be this point A. What's an angle? It's two rays that have the same endpoint. The endpoint is called a vertex. If you look at this example right here, we have an angle with vertex A. How do you name an angle? There are three ways to do it. Three ways to do it. The first is by the vertex. Then I'm going to draw a slash because there is a second way. So how do you name it? By the vertex. What's another way? 3 points. 3 points on the angle. One of them has to be the vertex, by the way. What's the third way? Do you notice in this example there is a floating 1? There's no degree symbol next to it. They're not saying, hey, this angle right here is 1 degree. That's not possible. That's definitely more than 1 degree, right?
Yeah, 1 degree.
They're saying you can name the angle by a floating number. When I say floating, I mean it's not attached to a point. It is just on the inside of the angle. And it will always be right there in the corner. Okay? All right, so there's 3 ways to name it. Now what we're going to do is actually name it by those 3 ways, okay? So the very first way was by the vertex. What was the vertex of this example? It was A, point A. So you would call this angle A. If you named it by the vertex. Now we're going to name it by 3 points. This is very important. Here's where people start to mess up, and it matters. It matters so much. When you name it by 3 points, you have to trace the angle with your pencil and go in a specific order. You will either name it B, A, C, or C, A, B. What letter do you notice is in the middle of both of those? A. Why?
The vertex.
Because it's the vertex. That's what matters. So I'm going to draw a slash. And now I'm going to name, this is getting a little crowded, so maybe I shouldn't put the slash. I'll put or. You could call it angle, what do we say, BAC. And I'm going to put comma, like or CAB. Either one there. Then I would like you to take your highlighter, if possible. If you can, like, turn the highlighter to the pointy end and highlight the A in the middle so that you'll remember what I'm about to say, and that is that the vertex has to be the middle letter. And then I want you to take your arm, raise it. Everybody in the club raising their arm. Everybody, trust me, this is going to help. Y'all raise your arm. Y'all join me. Aaron, join me. Bet, join me. Thank you. Now I want you to lower it without hitting your neighbor. Like this. All right, and then now I just want you to bend it like you're doing an awkward robotic wave. Bend it. All right, you can quit. I didn't want you to get hurt. Look, as you're bending it, what is right here at the bend? The elbow, which is the vertex of that angle. I want you to associate the vertex of an angle is the elbow. Okay, so, because it's very important, and it has to be in the middle of the name if you use 3 points. Okay, or we could call it angle 1. Using the floating numbers is really nice. It does not happen a lot. It's more when we have examples that have like a crap ton of angles in them, and you just need numbers floating instead of 3 letters to trace because it's just too much, okay? All right, now we're going to come down here and we're going to practice. You have 2 examples under number 1. I would like you to name it in 3 ways. Write 3 names next to each one of them. You will notice I said 3 because there is no floating number on these. So you can't name it by a floating number. So look at the other ways to name it using the 3 points. And then try it. So if you're stumped, I'll help you with the first one. If I was to name this very first one by just the vertex, it would be angle D. Look for the elbow. This is the vertex, so it would be angle D. If I was to name it by 3 letters, what's one possibility? It's okay. So we got EDF or DEF? What do you think? You changed your answer? Okay. So D's the vertex. It's got to go in the middle. So EDF is one possibility. That's a terrible F. And then what's the other possibility? FDE. Just go in reverse. So if you were stumped and now you get it, I want you to do this one right here.
Our lane burned out like
Repaint, rebuild.
we got a month or so to rebuild.
Did you get angle L as one of them? Did you get KLM?
Yeah.
And, oh,
Well,
yep, hold on.
MLK.
Reverse it, MLK. All right,
Martin Luther King.
hopefully you understand how to name the angle. You just practiced. It's going to come up a lot, right? Stay with me. All right, now look at this antiquated device on your paper, which is called a protractor. We are not working with protractors because, like I just said, they're a little antiquated. They still work. They still have a function and a purpose. But now we have, digital technology, and in terms of being able to do the state standards, using a protractor is not one of them. So, but I still wanted you to know what it looks like. Construction architects, like they use, I doubt they use an actual protractor. They probably have a more sophisticated device. But I wanted you to look right here. You see all these angles? Yes? You see all these points? Okay. The protractor is a way to measure an angle. The way you do it is you lay down the protractor so that it lines up with the bottom of the angle, and then you measure how far it opens up. Now, you'll notice there's 2 rows of numbers here, and that's an ingenious idea. Whoever invented the protractor said, well, what if the person turns it this way? So there's 2 rows of numbers so that it doesn't matter how you lay the protractor down, as long as you can determine, I have a small angle, I have a big angle. You should be able to determine that. Would you say this is small compared to this?
Yeah.
Yeah. Small, big, right? As long as you can distinguish between the 2, you can read the measure of an angle. I'm going to give you the measures. Here we go. 100, 57, 56, 99, 180, 240, no, not 240, 24. 24. Okay, There's a specific angle on there that we need to talk about. It's going to come up a lot. It would be the one that measures 180. Can anybody describe to me how 180 exists in the everyday real world? An example. I think you're sure.
The desk is 180, right? Because it's completely flat.
Yes. Hold that thought. I'm going to come back to it and I'm going to argue for you. Yes. Got two. Who wants to go?
I was gonna say our phones. I'll show you what it is.
Okay. Okay. It is a line. Anyone else? It is a measurement of a line.
There's no
Examples are the desk and the phone. Have you ever heard of doing a 180?
Yeah, it's completely like
Thank you. Skateboarders, snowboarders, skiers. I'm trying to think of other examples. Attitudes, personalities, behavior. She came in today and it was a complete 180. What did I just say?
she was there.
It was the opposite. It was the complete opposite of whatever I'm implying was the other day, right? Okay. 180. Watch me. I'm not whipping or nay-naying. I'm just saying, watch me.
The one that's funny.
That was bad. I'm sorry.
No,
I'm
found
trying.
that
So,
funny.
thank you.
That one's actually kind of funny.
Thank you. All right. Watch me quit. No. Okay. I gotta know when to quit. I need to know when to quit. All right. I've got both arms pointed in this direction. I'm opening up the one arm to create 180. It's really hard to do this, so I hope you're paying attention. But my arms are now in a straight line, and I just rotated a 180-degree rotation. Do you get it? You with me? Okay, so on this picture, angle EFA is 180 degrees. Here's E. Here's F. I want you to take your pencil and darken this, or you can even do your highlighter. And then here's A. You will notice it draws a straight line, but we said, hey, it has 180 degrees in it. That is because I'm going to draw an arrow to it. I wish it was the last one, but it's not. That is called a straight angle because it forms a straight line. And there is a measurement there. It is 180 degrees. And it comes up a lot this semester. Okay? All right. Highlight. What does it mean when angles are congruent? What does it mean if you have an angle bisector? Highlight that, and now let's fill it in. If angles are congruent, it means you have angles with the same measure. They're equal. We've already been practicing that. Now we just have the definition on paper. So for example, if I said to you, these two angles right here are congruent, then you would go in and make congruent marks so that in your mind you would remember, hey, they're equal. Now, did I tell you what they measure? Did I give you the value? No, I didn't. I just said they're equal, right? Now, let's write the congruence statement. You could say angle E is congruent to angle J. Thank you. That is the only way you could name it if you used a single letter.
I didn't make that though. Like I didn't not like these at all.
So the way I do it is I basically draw the beginning of an X. You with me?
Mm-hmm.
And then I know to myself that it's an angle, and then so I just go flat. So it's like the beginning of an X, but then it's flat. Okay, angle bisector. This is very important. This comes up a lot. Some of the things we learn in geometry, when we hear the vocab word, they're actually secretly telling you something is equal. Without saying, hey, these two parts are equal. Angle bisector is a way of secretly telling you there's two angles in there that are equal, but they're saying angle bisector instead. Okay? Use the prefix to help you. Bi, like bicycle, means two wheels. Bisect means it's intersecting into two equal parts. Okay? What is an angle bisector? It is a ray that divides, or you can say cuts in half, but divides an angle into two congruent angles. Now this was a little repetitive. You have a really big angle. You have a really big angle. Then you have a ray shooting out of the middle of it, which is your angle bisector, and it's cutting that big angle into two congruent smaller angles. So two parts, two equal parts. So when we mentioned angle bisectors in our practice problems, I'll always say to you, what does that mean again? And your answer needs to be cuts it in half. Okay? Cuts it in half. Okay, so if you look at this example right here, we're gonna write ray LO. Notice above it I did the ray notation. Bisects, I'll spell it right. Bisects angle MLP. Ray LO bisects angle MLP. I'm sorry, I thought they got sucked into like a black hole or something. They're getting water. So I want you to take your highlighter, because we highlighted the vocab word. I want you now to highlight LO.
There it is.
Highlight LO. It is cutting that big angle in half, okay? When you know that something has been cut in half, that means it's cut into two equal parts. Not right now.
No.
So you could draw this if you wanted to. I wouldn't do it, because if you draw that, it's kind of confusing and it makes you think there's just one big angle there. I would scatter it like this. Notice how I scattered it. Now I can clearly see the two angles that are congruent. Okay?
Who started this? Now? Because I was on Pete and the wall.
When we know that LO has cut this big angle in half, now we know that angle, watch my finger as I trace it, MLO is equal to OLP. It's a mouthful. You have to go slow as you read it. Did you see how I traced it? So we have angle MLO is congruent to angle OLP. Write that wherever you can. You're going to have to wait. I'm still teaching. Just wait 1 second. Yes. Just wait 1 second. It's probably dead too. Now I'm going to take and change colors. I want you to look at something. Don't do this on your paper because it'll end up making a mess. Look at this. Do you notice we have this angle right here? With me? We have this angle right here. Then do you notice that we have this angle right here? Do you see how there's three angles there? So that's what makes it tricky, is when you have a picture like that, some people think there's just the two angles. They forget about that big one. Okay? All right, go to the back. Let's practice. Okay?
Huh?
I'm teaching. I need you to be quiet. Guys, this is not going to work. Y'all can ride the bus. You can ride the bus. If you can't, just come in, be quiet, sit down. I'm teaching. Go to the back. Look at number 3. Find the measure of each angle. Look at number 3. Measure of angle QRS equals what? QRS has a congruent mark on it. It has a congruent mark on it, showing that it's congruent to this angle right here next to it, which is what? 32 degrees. It's as simple as saying, well, if they have the congruent mark, then this is also 32 degrees. Number 4 says ray BC is bisecting, that means cuts in half, cuts in half angle ABD, right? So read it carefully. We have the ray cutting it in half. ABD is the big outer angle. So if this is 27, then what's this? Also 27. Now, it didn't ask for that angle, though. Read the question carefully. It said, find the measure of ABD. If you trace your pencil on A to B to D, that would be the entire angle. So it's 54. Thank you. Very good. You've just used what's called the angle addition postulate, which is the bottom of the paper, to answer my question. It would be 54 degrees. Number 5, measure of XYZ is 128. It really helps to label your picture. X to Y to Z. Okay, that's the whole thing. This is hard to label. I tend to come on the outside of it like here, and then I say, okay, so that whole thing's 128. It says to find the angle XYV. Find that angle, put a question mark.
So it's 64.
XYV is here. Your clue, you're wondering how she got the answer so fast. Your clue would be the congruent marks in the picture. These are saying the angles are equal, which means if you took 128 and cut it in half, you would have that one angle right there, which is 64. Now, those examples all involve just numbers. Now what we're going to do is look at these examples which involve polynomial expressions, which is exactly why Unit 1 was so important. Unit 1 involved solving multi-step equations, right? You needed to be good at that because in order to solve these questions, you have to set up an equation and solve it. Now, the biggest problem is people say, I don't know what equation to set up. Enter me. I'm going to tell you right now. You have to look at the picture. You ask yourself, what are the clues? Is something cut in half? Is something congruent? Does something add up to equal the whole thing? Those are your clues. And then however you answer that is your equation. So number 6. It does help to label the picture, by the way. So this says angle FGH, F to G to H, is 21x minus 6 degrees.
Come in.
Angle HGI is 15x. H to G to I is 15x degrees. It asks us to find the measure of F to G to H. F, G, H would be the whole thing, right? So we have an equation to set up here.
Donald's car
You don't have
is.
these versions?
I know Donald's
Okay.
car is.
So we have an equation here to set up. This is called the angle addition postulate, which we're fixing to put on paper, but I wanted you to look at the example right here. Do you notice how we have this part and this part are equal to each other? There's your equation. Did y'all see that?
It's raining.
No, I think someone upstairs was pouring something out the window upstairs, but it was very weird.
No, it was that.
Okay.
Not right.
Anyways, these angles are congruent. Congruent means equal. So there's your equation. 21x minus 6 has to equal 15x. And we got that because of those congruent marks. Now solve. That's a two-step equation. That's from Unit 1. I personally would move the 21x over because you already have a minus 6 on the left side. So I would move this by subtraction. You would end up with negative 6x. And then now that is attached by multiplication, I would move it by dividing. Negative 6 divided by negative 6 is 1. Now, did it say solve for x? No, it said find the measure of an angle. So you have to go plug that in. Now plug it into the correct one though. We're going to plug 1 into, they want FG, oh they wanted H, don't they?
Yeah.
I need to adjust this. I wrote the whole thing because I saw that as an H. I'm going to erase right there. There you go.
This one.
Yeah.
When you subtracted the 21, wouldn't that be adding the 15?
Positive 15 minus 21 would be negative 6, right? Yeah. There you go.
I got negative.
Should be positive 1. It is. Double check your signs.
Okay, guys. I will
It's
talk
okay.
to Ms. Holcombe.
Thank you. I'm really glad that you are letting me know.
Good afternoon. Your bus changes are as follows. Bus 150 will double up on 61. Bus 142 will be 121. And bus 87 will be 150. Again, your bus changes for the day. Bus 150 will double up on 61. Bus 142 will be 121. And bus 87 will be 150. Bus riders, please remember to remain in your classroom until your bus numbers have been called.
So you
Also, if you're interested in joining to serve on the FCA leadership team, the leadership team are new members who are in charge of leading and planning meetings for FCA. Please see Coach Gaylor in room 210 or Coach Lancaster in 229 to sign up. Thank you and have a great afternoon.
Number 7 says find the measure of x, y, z. That would be this angle right here. In order to find the measure of that angle, I need to know what x is, right? My clue is this picture. And they're telling you, hey, that this is equal to this. So there's your equation. We're going to set these equal. We have 7x minus 5 equals 3x plus 7. Now in this case, you do have terms on both sides. Pick one to move it, then move the other number. So if I move 3x,
Bus riders, bus 124 is here. You ride bus 124 and it's here and you can be released to the bell. Thank you.
you should come down to 3, right? Now it didn't say solve for x, it said what's the measure of this angle that has the question mark. So what do I do with the 3? You plug it in. So this right here would be 7 times 3, 21, minus 5, so you get what? 16 degrees.
Do we have delta math?
You do.
Wait,
It is
does
10
it
questions. The first 3 are naming an angle. The next 4 are being able to tell me what's congruent. And the last 2 are like what we did right here.